Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
I think the protocol is for now, you can turn your camera off and then they do the preliminary stuff that they do before committee meeting. And then I'll ask for you to join us.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Hi, Christina.
Good morning.
Good morning. We all ready for the snow? Sherry, well, the meeting hasn't started yet. Based on the conversation.
Just so you know, it's live on YouTube.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna talk about the snow and that kind of stuff, but you can talk off.
Okay.
Just wanted you update on where we at so far.
Okay, we can connect right after this.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
New England always has to give us one last, hopefully the last snowstorm before spring.
Yeah, we usually get one in March. And usually it's a doozy only because it gets cold at night and warm during the day and we get the March rains a little early. And usually get like a foot of snow in March and it's gone in like 24 hours because it's in the 50s and 60s during the day.
That's what's been happening. Well, okay, I have that to look forward to.
Yeah, I know. We got one more surprise coming, I think.
I will check with the board members.
I was questioning it. Good morning.
Good morning.
I seen tentative, so I was like, I think I'm gonna. I was prepared.
For the movie. I mean the movie. Let me check with Yvette, who is currently the only other member. Miss Yvette Bello, I should say. So
Because I was in board docs searching for the agenda and this morning, but my internet wasn't all that. So
also I forgot to feature it until like around 8:10, 8:15. I'm like,
oh yeah, because I was looking for it. I said, well, maybe not.
like it was there, but yeah. Here now. Can you access it now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'll let you know what she says. You want to give her a minute?
Yes, we can. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be alone if I don't have to be.
Oh, she's here.
Oh, there she is. Oh,
Hi, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Hello, everybody.
morning.
You're not alone, Tante. I'm here.
Yes.
I don't know.
So Christine, if we have everyone we need, we can get started.
Yes, go ahead and get started.
Okay, we are going to call to order the February 2022 School Choice and Facilities Committee meeting. My name is Shantae Brody, Hartford School Board member, and I am joined by my colleague Yvette Bello. And we are going to jump right in to the first agenda item. Was it causeway effect? Did I read that correctly?
Mhm.
Is it a contract renewal?
Correct.
Yes, it's actually a one-year extension. And so if I may, Ms. Brody?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. So we're gonna, if it's okay, we're gonna dedicate that our school choice and enrollment update to discussing Causeway's contract with us. They are our firm that supports our marketing and what I prefer to call engagement. They are here with us today, similar to, as we talked about with the transportation contract, a one-year extension. They have been a valuable partner over 7+ years. And so our longstanding partnership, you've seen some of their work that we shared in the beginning of the school choice season. They are here with us today to just give a deep dive into our partnership and what they have brought to the table to support us over the many years. So I'm gonna introduce the Causeway team, Bob Schultz, Keto. Oh, Keto, why don't I know your last name?
Because it's hard to pronounce, like my first name. It's Citrullo. Thank you,
Citrullo.
Sherry.
And Matt Ingert. They are here with us today. They have a full presentation, and I'll talk a little more after, but I would certainly turn it over to Mr. Bob Schultz.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Good morning, members of the School Choice and Facilities Committee meeting. We're delighted to spend time with you. We too are a little concerned about the weather forecast, having just enjoyed a spring-like day yesterday, and now there's talk of snow, but I guess that's what winter brings for us. But anyway, thank you again. As I said, we're grateful to have the opportunity to tell you more about Causeway, but most importantly, to tell you about the services, the work, and the benefits that we provide to the Hartford Public Schools system. Are there any questions? I'm going to have my colleague Matt post the presentation. It won't take long. It'll take roughly about 15 minutes to walk through, but it contains important information, as I said. So with that, Matt, why don't we get started?
Matt, I'm going to just take 2 seconds. I forgot to share that what we wanted to do is bring it through the School Choice and Facilities Committee first before, right? Because you all have been the most engaged with us around the school choice process before moving to the Finance Committee. Okay, thank you.
All right.
So again, we're here to discuss consideration of the one-year contract extension. On the next page, you'll see just briefly what we'd like to do today, this morning, tell you about Causeway. We're a unique communications firm. We want to talk about the strategy and messaging that's behind the creative work that we've done. What's the thinking? What's the research that suggests this direction, et cetera. We want to highlight some of the key metrics of success. How do we know what we are doing is working? And then most importantly, we want to look ahead as we move forward together. So if there are no questions, let me tell you just briefly about Causeway. On the next slide, you can see, as our name suggests, we were founded in 2008, 15 people brought together by a shared passion, a passion to do good. We work exclusively with government agencies at the federal, state, and local school level. So for example, we work at the federal level with HUD and the EPA, the state with the Connecticut Department of Health, and then here with the Hartford Public Schools system. We also work with leading nonprofit organizations, you would know, US Fund for UNICEF, et cetera. All of our work is for the greater good. We call it, as you can see on the next slide, purpose-driven communications, because we're not out to sell deodorant, nothing wrong with that. We're out to promote important causes and to make a meaningful difference. And again, that's what brings the caliber of individual represented today and those that are part of the Hartford Public Schools team that are with us in spirit today, but did not join the call. In terms of our capabilities, we cover the most essentials, if you will. It starts with the research and strategy, and on behalf of Hartford Public Schools, we've done survey research, we've done one-on-one interviews. All of that has helped to inform a strategy, a strategic direction that informs the kind of advertising that we do. And you'll soon see a range of the advertising, some examples of what we've done over the years to see how it's relevant, how it lifts the brand, if you will. So whether it's print, TV, radio, billboards, or digital, we run the full gamut of communications on behalf of Hartford Public Schools. Another important capability is not just to plan, but to buy media efficiently on your behalf. So it's broadcast, it's print, it's radio, but it's also digital and social media. Finally, we do a raft of collateral materials, brochures. I think many will look familiar to you. And again, I just wanted to touch on some of these. On the next slide, though, more specific, as Sherry mentioned, we are so proud of our longstanding partnership with the Hartford Public School System, the Office of Enrollment and School Choice. I do want to point out that we also support the Office of Family and Community Partnerships and the Office of Communications. Our skill set involves strategic communications, as I mentioned before, collateral materials, SSG, that'll mean something momentarily, the different school brochures, application posters, communications flyers, etc. A comprehensive range of advertising services. It starts with conceptual development into advertising development, production, media planning, airing, and assessment. So I'm just really touching on what we do. If there aren't any questions, next up, I will have my colleague Kito take us through the strategic thinking, the messaging that is behind the work. And then Kito will highlight some of the work that should look familiar. If there are no questions, let me pass it on to you, Kito.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bob. And thank you to the School Choice and Facilities Committee and to our friends in the Office of School Enrollment and Choice. It is a privilege to see you all this morning. I have the lucky opportunity, Matt, if you'll take us to the next slide, to talk to you a bit about the objectives that we work toward on your behalf. So ultimately, why are we here, right? We're here because we want to make sure that Hartford area families have the tools they need to enroll, frankly, in Hartford Public Schools. We want to make sure that they understand their school options and the pathways to access them. Ultimately, that's our ultimate goal. And we do that in a few ways. We do that first, we do that by raising the visibility of Hartford Public Schools. So fundamentally, we want Hartford families to know about you, to know about the offerings. And furthermore, not just to know about the amazing school options, but to know that they're great fits and a great fit and great options for their children. So we really want to make sure that we can enhance the brand. I know that sounds wonky, but what that basically means is we want families to think well of Hartford Public Schools. We want them to know that they offer incredible resources and experiences for school-age children across the journey from pre-K through graduation from high school. And the only way for us to do that, our ultimate working objective, is to work very closely with our friends on this call, right? So we have to make sure that we understand by working with Sherry and Carolyn and Kayla, we understand what is going on in your backyard, in the family's backyards, understanding that there are a lot of shifting realities, frankly, around enrollment. Looking back from, in 2015, to the present, there's been a lot of shifting landscapes that you all have very nimbly and responsively navigated. And so we need to make sure that all of our communication to families reflects how opportunities have shifted on their behalf and on your behalf. So ultimately everything we do is to support school enrollment, to make sure that that families are educated about the options they have so that they can successfully enroll their students. And so if we look at the next slide, you'll see since 2015 that there have been a mosaic of themes, all again in support of our enduring objective, which is to enhance school enrollment. But these themes, these specific areas of opportunity for us to dig into have included all sorts of things, like celebrating the mosaic of all of the diverse school options that you have. You may remember that we had a campaign, and we'll reference this later, about opening the doors to your students, to your child's future, that there are so many doors and so many pathways that are right for so many different types of kids, so that there are many school options. We've focused on addressing, frankly, some of the concerns and confusion tied to the lottery, right? So after doing our research and talking to families, we learned that, back in the day, there were quite a few that were a little bit unsure about how to access the lottery, or how to use the pathways that we reference. How do we get there? How do we ultimately enroll? And so making sure that we mitigated any confusion that families might have by sharing resources, by sharing information. We've really wanted to maximize the DME, the District Model of Excellence. So using the language, the philosophy that the district has rallied around, we wanted to infuse our materials and our marketing themes, our engagement themes with that language and with that kind of approach. So the DME has played a large role over the years in the work that we have created for you. We've also really wanted to celebrate family engagement. It is a very big and exciting idea that at HPS, families play such an important and pivotal role, that there's such attention and focus on families being part of the recipe for success. And so making sure that families, through our marketing materials, feel seen and heard and given and empowered to do well for their children. We've also wanted to, particularly of late, celebrate the evolving pathways, if you will, between the neighborhood schools. So making sure that families understand their steps towards success, making sure that families understand new partnerships that have emerged between some of the neighborhood schools. Also to make sure that families understand the opportunities and pathways through magnet schools, but ultimately letting them know that there is a journey that they can take all the way through Hartford Public Schools, that you are prepared to support them and to serve the students in multiple ways from the very beginning all the way until they graduate into the next chapter of their academic life. As mentioned, we also, along the way have wanted to make sure that the reduced isolation families, particularly for those magnet schools, know about Hartford Public Schools as a wonderful, viable option to help avoid noncompliance with some of your magnet schools. And ultimately, of late, and may the day be here that we are moving beyond the pandemic, but we really wanted to emphasize that through the pandemic, your Hartford Public Schools, both neighborhood, all of them, open to all of them, all of the schools are providing uninterrupted quality instruction and support. And that means instruction, that's both social, emotional, and it's academic, that families could feel safe, that their student would be well supported, that schools were prepared through the pandemic to give the type of instruction that you have long promised, regardless of the health crisis. So thank you, Matt, if you'll take me to the next slide. The idea here is that we wanted to share again the bevy of themes that we have created while listening to our peers, to our colleagues on your team. So ultimately, we also think it's important for you to know, how do we work with you? So yes, we've got an objective, and yes, we've figured out, working with you and listening, a bunch of different themes that we want to really dive into, but how do we do that? Who are we in relation to you? So we need you to know that there are three core kind of principles for us in why we love our relationship with you. The first is that we have to be nimble. We love being nimble. We love being responsive, as do you, right? What we know is that this is not a stagnant opportunity. You are not working in a landscape that is predictable at all times. And we embrace that. We embrace the idea that for families, their circumstances change. for you, that the kind of, if you will, the realities that come down from on high have changed and may still change. And so we need to be nimble in our approach and not stagnant in how we work with you. It is critical that we listen. And what you saw from Bob on an earlier slide is that we do believe in research, and research happens in all different ways, right? It's the more traditional marketing research where we do qualitative and quantitative. It's also, it's every time that we have the opportunity to sit with a principal or, someone in leadership at school or a board member. Every time we have the privilege of listening to what's going on, it makes us smarter for you. So it's really important that we listen all of the time so that we can be nimble and responsive. And we also need to operate from an enduring respect for the families in and around Hartford. And that doesn't just mean the families who have students that are enrolling. It means the teachers and the academic community. It means the administrators. It means really respecting that everybody is in this game because they care about educating Hartford area residents. And so we do as well. So we wanted to let you know where we're coming from in all of the work that you're about to see. So Matt, if you'll take us through, I now get to share with you this is a walk through time with us. Yes, this is the rainbow of materials and deliverables that we have worked on for you and with you since 2015. And this next slide is actually one of my very favorites. And what I'll say, what I'll say as a platform, in everything that you look at in the next few slides, we want you to notice that there's a through line, that you should see an enduring, again, I keep using that word because we mean it, an enduring sense of quality and consistency in the communication. So hopefully you're not seeing 15 different deliverables that look you don't know where they're from, you don't see the HPS logo, it kind of looks shoddy. That is not what we are here to deliver. We are here to respect and to protect and to celebrate the Hartford Public Schools image in everything that we put out, so that families, just by what they see, the visual, have a sense that of the quality, right, and of the just how respected the Hartford Public School brand is and should be. So here we are, as I said, one of my favorite slides, which is an example of the school guides that we have created. And what you'll see is an evolution. So back in the early days of our time with you, we were working on something called the Future Guide, which you may remember. And that was a 96-page catalog, right? And it gave you everything. It was 96 pages. It was expensive and it was heavy, right? But it did a lot of good, yes. And so our objective was, how can we make this even more accessible for families? Because ultimately the whole job is to make it easy for families to get to you and to know about you. And so what you'll see is how the school guide has migrated over time. So, it started with the Future Guide, which was 96 pages long. It shifted into a 24-page kind of stepped tab, which is, again, kind of wonky language, but that you can see how the material looked and how it started to slim down to where we are today. We're looking at a 7-panel fold out. Right. So the idea is that fold out also has a companion online, right? So there's a digital interactive flip book that lives on the website. The idea is that we are working to not just give families everything they need, but give it to them in a way that's digestible and quick and accessible and current with the way that they use resources and the way that they use technology. So this is an example of our school guide, again, evolution. And if we go to the next slide, you will see examples of the brochures that we have created, individual digital files for every school that's available on your website, on the HPS website. And you'll see that we have neighborhood brochures, we have magnet brochures, they've been updated, and these give all of the critical ingredients that families need to see and know about the schools that they're researching, that they care about, that they're hopefully sending their students to, whether it's before the lottery, whether it's after the lottery, whether they're not using it, whether this is through their neighborhood pathway to success. The idea is that every school should have something that strongly represents them so that families can know about them. And so we've worked on your school brochures. Matt, if you'll take us to the next slide. We have also done print ads. So Those first couple slides were more about the resources, right? Giving families the information they need to know about specific, schools and the enrollment process. These next slides are about kind of the more macro communication. So the louder communication that is more holistic to not to the masses, but to the many, right? So this is an example of some of the print work that we've done for you since 2015. Some of our best cases that that hopefully showcase to you the variety of themes that we have focused on, as we referenced earlier. So you'll see we've emphasized magnet schools, we've emphasized Shea through our testimonials, we've talked to suburban families, we've talked about the kickoff to kindergarten, and most recently we celebrated the Hartford Promise. So I know I'm talking a little bit quickly. I hope that it's not too quickly, friends. But ultimately, what I want you to see again is the depth and breadth of the type of work we're doing. As Bob said, we're multi-platform. So yes, we can work with schools and share individual brochures. And yes, we can, and you'll see in a slide in a minute that we can do, billboards, we can do print campaigns. And so all of this, again, is designed to support educating families with the tools they need ultimately for enrollment. Matt, if you'll take us to the next slide, we have also done postcards, which some of you may have seen in your mailboxes at home or in different school buildings. But what have those postcards done? They've been really quick, quick flashes for families to say, oh, right, time is running out, the lottery is coming. This is right. It's good to know that there's an open house coming up. I'd love to go to that. So this is, for those families who aren't living only online and who do still collect mail, we are giving them jumbo postcards so that they, in your colors, in your quality visual representation, so that they can say, oh, I don't want to miss the open house down the street. I almost forgot. So we have used postcards as a tool to reach out as well. Moving forward, we have also done, this is the kind of more typical when you think marketing, you think, okay, with TV ads and radio spots, we have done those too. And these have been incredibly joyful because it gives us direct access to the inside baseball, if you will, of your school. So meeting the students, seeing the teachers, seeing the leadership, getting to observe them, to include them in a very direct way, and to showcase what's happening with your students and your faculty in your schools. And so we've had some really exciting campaigns over the years via TV, and Matt, if you'll just take us to the next slide, also on radio. So we've worked with, we've done thought leadership where we've brought in, leaders across the HPS community to talk about why Hartford Public Schools are so special, are so meaningful. We know that you're in a competitive landscape, right? And so that's the other reality, is that we want to make sure that when people think of where is a quality school option, that they think of your schools. And so again, the idea is to saturate across the platforms to make sure that where they are is where we go. So if they're opening mailboxes, great. If they're listening to the radio, you're there. And finally, Matt, if you'll take us to the next slide, the other thing that we have really wanted to do is work individually with schools. So we talked a bit about giving parents resources, right? Direct resources through the school selection guides. We've talked about making sure that the many see you on billboards, on radio spots. And we also want to make sure that the schools have the opportunity individually, both leadership, leadership, principals. We've talked to so many people across your district to make sure that they have the resources that they need specifically to support their individual programs as well. So we've done training sessions with principals where we've talked about things like, you'll see this orange banner at the bottom. We worked on this engagement model for you. And the engagement model says, okay, team at Betances or whatever school it is, let's think about what is your school goal? Your goal is to make sure that families are aware of you, that they consider you as a good option, and then that they actually interact with you, that they're applying to the lottery or that they're signing up, right? That they're actually transacting with you, right? That there's something going on where they're now enrolling. So they've heard about you. They think well of you. They're figuring out how to connect with you. And then they actually want to join you, right? So that the transaction has happened, but that it's not over there or then. What we've really focused on in our conversations with leadership and with schools is to say, listen, that's all about recruitment. That's a big deal, but retention is also a big deal, right? So once you have your choir, use them. So what we've worked on is in our trainings is to say, okay, when you have parents, when you have students and families involved, whether they're still with you or whether they've graduated, make sure that they understand how to support you because they've bonded, right? So you are connecting with them. You are reminding them of your brilliance. You are reminding them of what they've done for your children, for your students. And then you're asking them to advocate for you because there is no better. And listen, friends, as much as we love having this contract and we hope we have the privilege to continue with you, your greatest asset are your families, right? Your talent is are your families and your leadership. And so making sure that when you have those people in your tent, that they are reminded to go out and when maybe someone's seen a billboard, maybe somebody has heard a radio spot. Then when a family says, oh yeah, my kid is enrolled, or we had the best time, my neighborhood school was a yes, and then I went to that high school and it was wonderful. That is frankly, the recipe for the secret sauce, right? So making sure that the schools understood that there's a way to engage that goes all the way from recruitment through retention, and that is a critical roadmap, if you will, for individual school success. So my favorite part of our job has been, frankly, some of these training sessions with your principals and with your teams. We also have worked on individualized boosted posts for school-specific Facebook pages. We've worked with schools to do that, as well as created 29 custom school videos. So as much as we've been supporting Hartford Public Schools from the macro, we've also understood that there's an opportunity to connect with your individual schools to allow them to kind of sing their song and have their voices heard as loudly and as productively as possible. So Matt, if you'll take us through to the next slide, one of the things, and you can keep going one more slide, please. Yes, thank you. In all of this, we know that there are some people who will say, well, so what? Okay, so we've given you money, you've done some work, what was their value? And we would say we have some specific metrics where we can say to you, thank you, we have been stewards of the funding you have provided us with. And yes, we are looking to offer and to create as much value as possible. We do understand that money does not grow on trees. And I do know there's a tree behind me. I have never said that with the tree before, but money does not grow on trees. And so we need to maximize the dollars that we have. And so what we are proud to share with you is that now 100% of Hartford Public Schools receive customized materials. Not generic, customized materials every single year, every single one of your schools. We can tell you that on printing costs, when we first began, printing costs were what they were, and that we have we've created a 50% cost savings by moving from, by using the type of materials and the sizing that we have now we have suggested for you. You are saving money in your printing costs, significant funds actually. This third bullet where it says 140% over delivery, what that means is that digitally, we have gone out and paid for and expected, for example, a certain number of eyeballs to the ads that we have placed for you. We have received 140%, we've received more eyeballs than we expected. And not just people have seen, which is impressions, right? They've seen your ads, but the click-through rate, right? So the rate at which people are actually clicking on the digital ads that we've created for you is 60% higher than what we had expected based on what we paid for. So the good news is that on the digital front, not just on the print front, the value that we are earning is greater than the money that we are spending. Similarly, on the outdoor billboards, we've had a 50% value add. And what does that mean? We have gotten, if you will, nothing in life is really free. It's not, I don't know if that's the safest word to say free, but we have earned extra, if you will, billboards on your behalf with the money that we have spent, so that we have more imagery about Hartford Public Schools up than you have actually paid for. And similarly, we have earned for you extra, if you will, free airings for both TV and radio of the spots that we've created. So ultimately, we want you to know that as your partners here in this engagement effort, we want to not just create products that we feel proud, that we want you to feel proud of. We want families to feel that are useful, but we also want to make sure that the money that we're using it wisely, and that we're creating additional value for you, which ultimately relates to additional opportunity for your families to be educated, and hopefully this leads to increased all of this toward increased enrollment. So Matt, if you'll take us through the next slide and the next. So moving forward, what is our hope? Our hope is to have the opportunity. Again, it is a privilege to support you through this additional year contract extension, to continue with this arc of engagement that we have created with you and started for you in 2015. Ultimately, we need to stay true to our core objectives. As we said in the beginning, this is all about, through working with Sherry and Carolyn and Kayla, working toward making sure that families have the tools they need so that they can access Hartford Public Schools. That is exactly what we're doing. And how do we do that? We do that by continuing to partner with our friends at the Office of Enrollment and School Choice and partner departments across the district. And we also want to make sure that we are always and ever embracing the expected and the unexpected, going back to this idea of we need to be nimble. So we know that there's been, the recent Chef V. O'Neill ruling. We know about the CCP coming up. So this comprehensive choice plan is going to shift things for families, for you. We know that the pandemic is not yet fully in our rearview mirror. And so we need to make sure that as much as we're celebrating the content and celebrating how to use the lottery and celebrating, and making sure that families know how to get to you and how to sign up, we also need to be real that the landscape will continue to change, and we are up for that challenge. It is a challenge that we have been grateful to have. We are, so mindful that there are many different options that you have for finding partners to support you in the work. And truly, it has been something that we are excited about, something that we hope that we can continue to be excited about. We love working for Hartford for support in supporting you, supporting families, and the students that you have created pathways for in their academic success. So with that, the final slide is just to say thank you, and just to let you know that both Bob and I and Matt are available through Sherry and Carolyn and Kayla, and that it's been a privilege to speak with you this morning.
Are there any questions about what we've covered, who we are, the services we provide, the benefits, etc.?
Ms. Bello, you have anything? Thank you for that. Thank you for that awesome presentation.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the thorough walkthrough, and I really appreciate the sort of evolution of the materials from the 96-page Bible to relevant, quick, easy, accessible, and light data and pamphlets. I'm curious about digital. I know that's a big word. A lot fits into the word digital. When it comes into companions for our pamphlets. I'm wondering if there's any social media presence. Are you utilizing students maybe create in their creative capacities to do zines or anything that's sort of on their level of communication? Nothing, when my daughter wanted something, wherever she got it, she was persistent. And so I'm wondering how could we really go on their channel and let them be mavens for our brand and, our what we offer here.
That's a great question, Yvette. And Bob or Matt, do you want to speak more to the Facebook piece?
I'll key it off, and then Matt can speak to it a bit of it. That's an excellent point. Obviously, digital, Facebook, Instagram, etc., are core components of our overall plan. In terms of targeting students, I don't think that's been as big a part of it as you might suggest. So that could be an area of opportunity that we would approach carefully and perhaps pilot test. But I know within our overarching media mix, social media, digital media has a growing presence, but the percent that actually speaks to students as opposed to parents, I couldn't quite speak to. Matt, do you have any statistics or just overall view on that?
Sure. So like Bob mentioned, Facebook and Instagram is a core element in our digital campaigns. And again, we're mostly targeting parents with a range of age students within their households. And we could obviously explore alternative options. I know we've done stuff like TikTok and other items with other clients, but we do have to be careful about, targeting individual students under like certain ages. A lot of those apps and social platforms do limit what you can target towards children. A lot, they want to protect the safety of students. So we do want to keep that in mind as well.
But there could be.
If it's okay, I would just like to add a couple of things.
Sure.
One is that our work with Causeway has always been student-centered. Most of our capturing of our students in action has been through our commercials. And also it is the area where we let our schools take the lead. So for instance, they're always posting things that's happening in their building. And so the Office of Enrollment and School Choice teams repost with additional information on top of that post to say, and now continue to look at our options through the application process.
And Yvette, it's a really interesting point, and I would echo also what Sherry is saying, that so if we think about how the pieces all fit together, our ultimate directive has been about educating families about tools, right? Because where we began was making sure that they could get themselves into the lottery, for example. And so what you're referencing, which is really important, and as Sherry said, it came up more in our conversations when we were doing our principal training, is that the schools, there's this quiet period, right? There's this quiet period where, okay, so maybe a parent figured out how to use the system, hopefully, right? And then they've got their kids signed up, and then there's a wait. And then the question is, when they find out what schools that they've been accepted to, if you will they actually enroll? That's frankly also where we think the student voice needs to be heard by the parent, or the schools need to be talking to the kids. So that's where we've also said to, and this is less though related to the digital piece of your question, and more if the overarching question is, how are you using students, right? How are you talking to them directly? What we have hoped is happening, and I would love, and we as a team would love to continue to kind of dig in here, is during that quiet period in particular, our schools, exactly as Sherry said, are they reaching out? Are they having, whether it's through an open house or whether it's through their posts or whether their students, because many of these schools have kind of not a school congress, right? But they have ambassadors. So are there student ambassadors doing things using digital platforms to help remind kids that there's something amazing happening at their school? Because to your point, while parents and as you said, well, and as a mom, I have some, I have an important role, but my kids have their own ideas. So making sure that we are on their level as well is absolutely important. And right now, as Sherry said, it's been living more in the school space, right? For them to take the lead with that kind of peer-to-peer connection through their student ambassadors, et cetera. And it's something that we absolutely should consider as a making sure that if there are additional ways for us to safely, as Matt referenced, safely kind of in the digital space explore, that we should. So thank you. That's a really great point, Yvette.
Yeah, one idea that comes to mind are those transitional periods in the student journey where we potentially lose them, as they consider entering high school, et cetera. So those might be the most critical times to your point, Yvette, use the student voice more powerfully and effectively. So thank you for that suggestion. Are there other questions?
Yeah, just
Sure.
another follow-up to on a sort of a different part of the conversation where the challenges that were delineated, certainly Chef versus O'Neill and just COVID, but also events at the schools that reach publicity, and rightfully so. You know, we had school deaths recently, and I just don't want to kind of gloss over that. There's real situations happening in our schools that I'm going to say here in public are not segregated or regulated to Hartford only. There's just a bigger spotlight on our school systems, and those things happen everywhere. You know, and here we are. So I just wanted to kind of add, not to go into too much down this, but I want to highlight that we do have real situations at our schools. And frankly, I'm going to say this, thank God they happen in our schools in a weird way, because we get to care for students who are impacted by events like that in a way that might not happen if it were in another district or in a non-school environment. So I just want to kind of echo that those are also challenges that we have, and I'd love to, you know, either in a secondary conversation or as an ongoing conversation, how do we talk about the realities of our schools, or not the realities of our schools rather, but the realities our schools have to work with and be in community with, frankly, both the good and the not so great.
Yeah, it's a very good point, and it's something that we actually heard early on prior to the pandemic when we were doing some research with families, especially those families outside of Hartford Public Schools. So I'm sorry, not outside of Hartford Public Schools, but in the suburban areas, right? So hearing from families that, you know, they read the papers, right? They see and are very aware, and for those who live downtown, that you know, when things happen that are ugly, parents get worried, or they want to make sure that their kids are safe. And so ironically, Yvette, I will do the same thing you did, which is to say, like, to take something that should be just a negative and realize that there's a positive element here. Because of the pandemic, for the first time that I know of in your, you know, engagement marketing history, we focused on the need for safety, right? But not in the context of shootings or like not, but just in the, and we didn't, and so, but it was bigger than the pandemic, right? So in saying your whole child is safe, what we do here is we circle wagons. It was an excuse, right? It gave us the opportunity to say, this is a family where we care in all ways. Your kids are safe with us. And so it's interesting, Yvette, because it may be that we want to carry through that theme beyond the pandemic, because there are things that unfortunately may continue to happen in Hartford that, and to your point, you are like, from your leadership down, it has become and it's in the DME, it's a crystal clear message that caring for the whole child, social emotional support, is incredibly important. And you're right, that's not the case everywhere. So celebrating that may be more important, frankly, for families and kids, going back to kids care too, moving forward, than it was in the past. So I think that's an exceptionally important point. Yeah.
It's something that I really appreciate from our school system. Like,
Yeah.
You know, life is life, and it's not always beautiful. And yet here are students who are extremely resilient, even in the worst situations. And so the commitment from HPS has been something that I'm proud of. You know, I'm not proud of what causes us to be resilient. I'm not happy about that. And it's certainly there, you know, it brings to light for me what's certainly out of our reach and control. But whatever's within it is something that I'm very proud of. So just again, kudos to your to HPS and its team for that.
Thank you. And
I had a question on cost. I didn't see the
Oh, yeah.
amount.
I have that. I was gonna close out with it. But before I do that, I did want to just speak to just their level of customer service is extraordinary. And I'm not saying that I am a person who believes that customer service is, it has to be right at the top. We have a dedicated account exec and Matt, who's always there, Bob, Keto, and the whole team. Regardless of when we call, they are there and ready to support. They attend our school fairs to make sure that what they have produced is working for the school community, walk around and have conversations with our principals. They actually, and I hope you've seen it, that they produced a commercial at the start of kids coming back into buildings during COVID. It was a part of the health and safety campaign. In addition, they supported our communications department and the district at large with the attendance campaign. And as you see, as of late, they put in some work on Hartford Promise. So just going back to like the nimbleness, they're always there, and it's just been just great. In terms of cost, so as you are aware, Hartford Public Schools is a partner with the Regional School Choice Office. The funding of this contract is supported through that partnership. And also there is a dedicated part of the Office of Enrollment School Choice budget that goes into this contract. So we are approved at this time with the board at a level of 200,000. Thanks to this team, we've generally come below that cost, which has given us the opportunity to do other things, such as that kickoff to kindergarten campaign, to develop other videos. And so in terms of the cost, that's the breakout. Ms. Brody, did I address your question?
Yes. And I didn't have a whole lot of questions. So help me understand. I know how many years, because I remember that choice brochure. I was dated on that one. That the big one. So I've seen the evolution of how, you know, families are engaged around choice. But I remember previous years, yep, there was money specific that was for magnets, like to promote magnets. But is this the same that we said, well, we're not going to just promote our magnet schools and highlight our magnet schools, we're going to do it for all of our schools? Is this the same?
It is, right? Because when we are talking about Hartford Public Schools, we're talking about Hartford Public Schools. We're not talking about just the branding of magnet schools. Certainly there is an expectation from the Regional School Choice Office that we do give that specialized attention to our magnet schools. But these dollars come to the district level, right? Where the Office of Enrollment and School Choice team's job is to highlight the district. And we leave the work to the schools to talk about their magnet schools, right? So these dollars are, you're right, they're a combination of the dollars that come from the state and also dollars that come from the district to make sure that we are doing this work equitably as much as we can across all schools.
Okay, so this is, so could you split the money for me so I understand exactly? Resco is paying for.
So the money that comes out, the Resco provides all partners with dollars to support marketing and recruiting of their portfolio of schools. And so it comes to us and what we call our, personnel service agreement. So we have dedicated staff that support the Resco. Some are full-time, some are half-time, and also within our agreement, there are dollars for marketing and recruiting. They don't really get into the weeds around, like show us exactly. Like they know we're doing the commercials. They know we're doing the brochures. They see our work and we share our marketing plan with them. But included in that work, right? If you look at the school choice guide, we're not going to make a guide for magnet schools. We're going to make a guide for Hartford Public Schools. And so we just continue that way when we do our brochures. We do it for all schools. And so again, Shante, maybe you're asking like, what's the split? It will be hard for us to make the split because the majority of what we do at the district level is for the district. The commercials, the print ads, the radio ads. So it serves the entire district. Now, Kayla, can you help me talk about a little bit like the dollars that do fall at the school level? So there have been promotional videos made for certain schools that have lower compliance rates where we're trying to boost that. So we will take dollars from the budget to support individual schools as warranted.
Yes.
Okay, so for the purposes of this contract, and excuse me if I missed it,
Oh, it's okay.
is there a certain amount that's coming from our budget, and is there a certain amount that's coming from what RESCO allotted us to be able to have flexibility with?
So nope. The RESCO contract, I believe it's about 137,000. Am I getting that right? Okay.
For marketing, yep.
For marketing. And then the remaining, so 200,000 minus that 137 is usually that those dollars are already in the Office of Enrollment and School Choices budget. So what is that, about an additional 60,000 that's in our budget, the district's budget?
Okay, and would we, I don't want all of the material, but will we be able, I'm quite sure Ms. Santiago is going to give us links to actually go and see like some of the materials. Also, I did, and I don't know who's marketed to, but I haven't received anything as a parent. And I'm sure that you probably market to maybe certain parents that are transitioning.
Yes.
I don't know how that works, but the only concern that I would have, right, is if you're in a school that goes to the 8th grade, but there are middle school options and you're skipped over, it's like the assumption is I'm staying at this school, but I could choose, because like some of our schools are 6 to 12. So in some of our schools we have middle schools. So I don't know, like when you get to that middle school grade, how do you market to those parents? Because I'm one of those parents and I haven't like received anything.
So that I'm clear. So, which is a really interesting point, and we have seen this, the ways in which different schools over time have gone through different grades. So what you're saying is, if some kid may be in a school that goes through 8th, but they might be interested in shifting to another school that's 6 through 12 or 7 through 12. And so how do we retain them in that current school when they may be looking at options, even though they theoretically should still have 2 more years before they look at high school? Is that the question?
Yeah, like,
yeah,
we're a choice district, right? So I'm like, well, it goes to 8th grade, but my daughter's saying, well, I want to go to this school.
Yeah.
But I'm not receiving I'm not targeted.
Right.
So because I'm not targeted, it's like, oh, I'm not like getting information and saying, wow, this might be a wonderful choice. It's just assume that I'm happy where I am and I'm going to stay there. So I know, because we have schools that go to 8th, we have schools. So our middle school is we have like probably three types, right? We have schools that go to the 8th, we have schools that start at the 6th, and then we have middle schools only. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes some of the middle school families can get a little bit lost and or overlooked, but it's really complicated. So how do we say we're going to market in a unique way to those families?
So I'll start, and certainly team, please jump in, but know that any student who's in a transitional grade is touched by a transitional postcard. And so there's a direct mail to those families. So I think we shared it, our last school choice and facilities meeting. I think it said, hey, William, enjoy your journey to high school. And so even on that postcard, it says, here is your Pathway High School, the school that's in your zone, if it's a Hartford resident student. And then it also gives information on the application process for magnet, open choice, and technical schools. So that's a direct mail to the families that they will receive a postcard. It's the same thing for a student who's transitioning from a 5th grade to a 6th grade. The school ends in the 5th grade and they're transitioning to a middle school. So there's a direct touch point. We started that about 2 years ago. And just know that all our schools received the guide, and school counselors actually share the information in their meetings with students and when they engage with families.
And what we would also, and you're raising a really interesting point. So as Sherry's saying, right, so we are prepared for those transitional moments, which is where most of the hemorrhaging, if you will, right, that's where the attrition happens for, we want to make sure that the kids are staying within the Hartford Public School system. To your point, that's an in-school scenario where we are making the assumption that schools are retaining their students through the end of their roadway. But what's interesting is that if schools are experiencing attrition in separate, kids leaving before the runway ends, that's a huge opportunity for schools, for us to potentially support schools to say, let's go back to that engagement continuum. You nailed exactly why we did that. This idea that, so you get them, you have to keep them. Right. So we spend all these dollars to recruit, and someone better retain them, because otherwise the dollars go, they're still worthwhile, but we're losing value. So it's a really interesting point about, particularly for those middle school kids who are starting to think about the grass is greener. How do we help schools to keep their families intact until the proper transitional time? So that's a really interesting point, and an opportunity for us to consider how can we support schools around that retention model. It's a great question.
Thank you. I don't have anything else.
So I'll end this section with just first thanking our fantastic team at Causeway for joining us. Your presentation was much appreciated. And just Ms. Brody and Ms. Bello, just know that our next step will be to develop the contract extension and share it through Finance Committee with your blessing.
And Ms. Bello, you're comfortable with moving it to the Finance Committee?
I am Shante.
Okay,
And also
good.
just keep looking for those discounts for us. We really appreciate those. Thank you. Keep saving money.
Okay, thank you. This was an awesome, I have to say, an awesome presentation. I really appreciated it.
Well, we greatly appreciate the opportunity to come before you, and thank you for the consideration and the support. It's a real honor and a great source of pride to call Hartford Public Schools our partner, and to say that it has been an enduring relationship is one, again, that is so meaningful to us as individuals as well as professionals. So on that note, again, we say thank you for your continued support. We will remain nimble and, to Kito's point, deep listeners as we go forward. So with that, if you'd like, we can remove ourselves from the picture and you all can continue. So again, we thank you so much for having us this morning. Stay safe in the snow. Don't know what the latest prediction is, but be well. And again, thank you for having us. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you for having us.
We'll sign off.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
bye.
thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, what are we doing next? So you said that was in lieu of the school choice planning?
No, that was just,
Or-
yeah, that was a part of that item.
Okay,
Yep, so yes, it's in lieu of, we can just share that. We're certainly still continuing with the application process. RESCO ends at the end of this month. There is a late application period. They haven't quite given us the guidelines on the late application period. So as soon as we have that, we'll share that. And, you know, at this point, District Choice, even though there is a end date for on-time application, we know that we continue to support our families all the way to the start of the school year. So that concludes the Office of Enrollment and School Choice update.
Sure, if you don't mind, Sherry,
Oh,
I'd
of
just
course.
like to add that tonight we're hosting our final virtual school choice session. So, and that's in English and Spanish. So for people who still need help with the application, all you have to do is visit Harvard Explore now. And it's in English and Spanish. Just wanted to add that. We're still engaging families in the process.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you for that. Just add while we have a little bit of a break,
Go
but
ahead.
just thank you, Chief Davis Gouge, and your staff again on managing that relationship with Causeway. It's a really big deal, and I don't want to underestimate or undervalue that. And if I have a chance, I'm taking this chance to say thank you for that, because that is a huge undertaking, a lot of moving parts. And it's a large amount of money, but it's also not, but it's super impactful. So just appreciate your work and your team's work on that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the acknowledgement. It does truly mean a lot. It kind of looks like it's behind the scenes most of the time, but the team works really, really hard to keep families engaged and actually truly just navigate these, I'm just going to call it muddy waters, right? And so thank you for that. Much appreciated. Should we move to the, it'll just
Is
be a
it for-
second.
so would it be the facilities and construction update? That would be the next item?
Yes, it'll go quickly. I know last meeting I shared that we were in conversations with the state around the Buckley projects. And we actually received a letter, I think it was on Tuesday. And so I haven't been able to dive into it or meet with the superintendent yet, as she's been out of the office. So certainly between this meeting and our next meeting, or somewhere in between there, we will be in touch with further details. And Mr. Bazzano, anything that we should?
No, everything is proceeding and we're in a little bit of a lull right now as contracts are going out and budgets are being reviewed. And so there's nothing really new to report from our last meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I did tune into the school construction board. I know I'm saying that all wrong. That meeting.
Hartford Building
it's-
Committee.
Yeah, so they mentioned a lot that had to do with the increasing. I heard some over budget stuff. I wasn't listening with care, but they did mention over budget, being over budget, and saying that materials are, you know, hard to find.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was trying to understand from a budget perspective, would that come back to us? Would we hear about, like, how does that work? Or once, is it just with them now and it doesn't circle back to the board?
It does not circle back to the board. It's really, everyone is working to try to mitigate the increase in the supply chain issues that are happening. Those conversations end up happening with the city and the state. Ultimately, the city and the state are the two money people. The state does their 95%, the city does their 5%, and any increase impacts both entities. So the board doesn't put any money out. So when it comes to funding, those issues happen between those two entities. We're part of the process, but as bystanders, and ultimately we're the ones who receive the school once it's all renovated. And we try to work with them and help them out if there's any opportunity to mitigate some of the overages, but it does not go back to the board. The board doesn't approve the budget. That's done between the city and the state.
Yeah, I think I would just add, though, certainly if any of these mitigations require a change in scope, where what we said, what you all voted on, not in terms of the dollars, but I'm just going to make something up. Like instead of, I don't know, like the driveway, we said that the shape of the driveway would be like this, right? If any of that changes because of dollars, we would come back to the board and say, hey, we showed you that this was going to look like this. FYI, because of some budget things, it's now going to look like that. So I think certainly the money piece, as Claudio said, does land between the city and the state. But if there's anything that significantly will change the scope of work that of the plans you saw, we would definitely come back to the board, especially to this committee, and share.
Thank you. So I guess that goes to us as a board reporting out, you know, as far as like the committees that we belong to, so that we just are in the know. So when we hear things in the community, we're not able to respond appropriately.
Yep.
Because when I think further, I'm thinking like they have the budget, you work it out, because I'm assuming they plan for something might cost more or less, or however they work that out. So when I further think it through, I definitely would see why it wouldn't come back to the board, but trying to be more aware of certain things, because we do have board representation on that board too. So thank you for that update. So is the last item the transportation update?
It is. I'm not sure we have much, Bill. We have anything to share?
We're still working on the extension part, and I'm going to be meeting with Sal so that we can have our discussion on the rate for the next time. So I'm trying to work the rate with him and to go over the preliminary contract so that he can see that. Also, we started this week the intercession students. So we had to route buses for intercession. We had 248 students routed buses for this week, going to 3 different schools in Hartford. Ended up being 7 buses total and 248 students from the city going to 3 different schools. That's pretty much about it.
Thank you. A question, and I don't know if it's for this committee. Intercession, right? Are schools, like, is it the district that only markets and emails for that? Are there students that they target and supposed to reach out to? I don't know who would answer that question, Ms. Santiago. I'm wondering, like, how does that work? I know
I
we all get emails. Go ahead, Ms.
I'm
Chief
sorry,
Stewart.
I was just gonna say, I can give you what I know, but certainly that will fall under teaching and learning. This intercession was dedicated to 3rd and 8th graders with a focus on math, I believe, and science. At the school level, there was a protocol used to identify which students would best benefit from the program. And so that selection came at the school level, and parents were engaged at the school level. I know for sure that the family community service providers were key in connecting with families to support the engagement of attendance. But again, most of that information would be best come from Chief Negron.
Okay, well, thank you for that information. I don't have anything else. Ms. Bello, do you have anything before we end?
No, just again, both with the construction and the transportation, thank you so much, again, behind the scenes, but super critical. And if anything, if there's a failure in either one of those, I'm sure, you know, it's chaos. So thank you again, both, for managing those parts. I never worry about transportation, Bill, and I love that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, with that said, we are adjourned. We've earned a couple minutes back to our schedule. So I thank everybody for their time and for the presentations and information today.
Thank you.
Very
Great,
welcome.
thanks.
Thank you. Have a
you.
good
Thank you,
day.
everyone.
Be safe. Bye-bye.